All right, Trade to Black, take two. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. Shad Dale's back here. Thanks for your patience. Trade to Black, powered by Dutchie. Let's welcome back AV into the podcast. I'm not sure how many people got a chance to see all that first part with Gretchen Gailey. But if you guys can hear us, just want to make sure that there's no technical difficulties. David, Jake,
I'm checking.
OG Grand.
I'm checking right now.
Just give us a comment if you can see and hear us. I just want to make sure everything's going because it seems to be that it's more of a software program.
Yes, we're good.
Live. Okay, we're good. All right. So if someone could comment how much they saw of the Gretchen interview, let us know and we can kind of.
So they'll see it all because it was it was recorded. If you watch that stream, okay. You'll be able to watch Gretchen. You'll be able to watch our segment on replay.
Okay. Jonathan writes we saw enough. All right. So big take.
Jonathan, speaking of, stocks are not going down because of that language to block rescheduling. That is a complete nothing burger, and that's Sam playing defense. I saw that you thought that was attributing to stocks losing momentum and losing steam. It has absolutely nothing to do with it.
Okay. Chadwick, what I saw is extremely difficult to follow. It was very choppy and breaking up quite a bit. Long story short, is a lot of interest right now in Washington. And I do know that there's some conversations about this could get done sooner rather than later. What that is timeline-wise, we don't know. But more importantly is the big takeaway was that they met with senior agency officials all weekend long, and they're looking to get new meetings put in place to keep this narrative going. But all in all, Gretchen basically said this feels different this time versus, meetings that she's had in the past where she wasn't even invited into a room to have these conversations, but these conversations are taking place. And that's the key takeaway. And more importantly, why we have said a number of times with various guests over the last week and a half, why this does feel different. But like you, I'm dying to know some sort of timeline. I wish we could tell you that, but we don't. But, when we have kind of an idea, we'll make sure to share it with you. But I don't think this is going to be something that is long down the road. But at the same time, too, I don't think it's going to be something that's going to happen, this month, if that makes any sense. So it feels different, according to her. And that's all we need to hear. And let's keep these conversations going. Let's now flip overseas into Germany. We saw that there's a new draft, a cannabis law that just dropped. And early reactions suggest that regulators are tightening rules on medical cannabis, especially around pharmaceutical supply chains and telemedicine. So with that, let's welcome in probably the most respected cannabis attorney in Germany, and that's Franzi Kaderbach. Back to the live stream. Thank you for being patient with us. And then if I told you this was going to happen at the top of the show, I probably would have said, just join us another day, but sorry about that, but glad to see that you're here. How are you?
I'm very well. Good afternoon. And I hope everybody can see what Gretchen said. I really enjoyed it. I could see it all. And she said, the straight talk was amazing. She said shit no less than a dozen times. I really love that conversation. It was relievingly honest. I loved it.
Listen, in the media space, you want to have people with an opinion. And Gretchen is that. Yeah. So whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. Because if you don't have an opinion, no one's going to know who you are. And that's what you don't want in the media space. But you got to hand it to her. He's invited to these meetings and meets with these congressional leaders. And that's the stuff that you want to see and learn. And likewise with you, being obviously practicing in cannabis law in the country of Germany, our good friends, the Artemis Growth Partners, Stan and Will, set up this interview. And they work and know the best people in the European landscape when it comes to the cannabis industry. And you're at, I guess, the center where you understand a lot of these administrations going on. And we saw this new draft that was put into place. So what should we make of this? Because there's always that, yes, Germany is growing, but there's also that uncertainty with this new administration. Could they start to pull stuff back? So how should we interpret this?
Yeah, so thanks for having me here. And I think that's a very important question and where we should start. Like, what have we seen? You spoke about that this is a law draft, it's a bill. But to be very honest, it's not even that yet. What we've seen is there is a new health minister. And this department, the health ministry, proposed to the government a law that then the government, if they vote for it, kick off the legislative process on this. So we're in this pre-stage. So, and if we take another step back and go a little bit into history, Germany just switched governments. And in the last administration, there was this descheduling from cannabis, medical cannabis. It was a narcotic before, and now it's just an RX.
Correct.
So that has been done by the previous government now. And this health minister is by the conservatives who won the election. So they're now in a coalition with the Social Democrats. And the health minister is run by Mrs. Varken. She's new, she's conservative. So she is now being presented the numbers, because almost a year ago or more than a year ago, there was this descheduling, and now we see the numbers. So what has happened? She has now been presented some numbers, and I can just repeat it because it's from the proposal of the law draft. She said, well, I'm presented numbers that tell me the following. From compared first half of 2024 to second, I see that the imports of cannabis, not dispensation, imports of cannabis grew by 170%. That's what I'm seeing. At the same time, you would then think, okay, yeah, it's more imports. So what is about the dispensation? You will see on the dispensation side, the insured product only grew by 9%, which means there's obviously a huge growth in the private sector. At the same time, you have telehealth platforms where there's little to no interaction with the doctor. And then you see a script, which is directly delivered to your home with like no interaction with any healthcare professional. So she's looking at this and says, I'm not sure if that's the development, what we wanted. So let's take a closer look. And so her department, the Ministry of Health, proposed a law where she's proposed, okay, I think this might be a misdevelopment that we didn't want back in the days. Again, her party did not support the law draft back in the days for the previous legislation. And so she's proposing to say, like, the initial consultation, before you get a script, you have to have a physical interaction with the doctor. And I want you to pick it up at the pharmacy. So if I look at all these things that we're seeing, for me, this is like a shout out for help, because she's looking at numbers. When I presented it, I could see it in your face. Anthony is like, ooh, like they're proposing something is odd.
Well, so this is essentially a recommendation to, let's say, make it a more stringent system. This isn't a proposal to roll back CanG. This isn't a proposal to, let's say, do away with telehealth. This is simply looking at the numbers objectively and saying, well, if we have 170% growth, meanwhile, we have 9% growth under one bucket. So let's just attribute all of that growth to telehealth. Maybe it needs to have a superseding appointment with a physical doctor to ensure that we're getting this right. So they're kind of just looking to fortify the process.
Yeah, I think for me, this is a brutal assessment for me is to the industry, like how tell your story, what you're doing, because there's lots of operators in the market that have a very thorough compliance system, protocols in place. So explain that, because when you look at the numbers, you would say that's odd. I would assume imports grow. This can also just tell you there's a heavy oversupply. This doesn't mean like anything. It could be you can import and it can rot in a warehouse. I mean, that's a phenomenon that you know from Canada, that everything that is produced has ever been dispensed. So I think it's just numbers where there's one thing, there's another thing. So give me an explanation what is happening in between. And I think what she's really calling is because I've seen many comments on this, and people make a read of it saying she's not trusting our doctors or so forth. I think what she's saying is, I want doctors to have a say in this process. And I think that is already in the laws. So what is already illegal is that you have an AI tool where there's questions and then magically there's a script that has been delivered with Uber to your home. That's already illegal.
So my question is, how many doctors are up to speed when it comes to cannabis in Germany? Because I've heard reports that there's not enough. And if so, that'll drive actually Germans back to the illicit market. Is there any truth to that?
I think what is true is that in medical school, the endocannabinoid system is not really explained. It's not part of the studies. So it's really up to the industry to educate doctors. And we come from a prohibition. So it really takes place. And for sure, what this telemedicine tells us that people struggle to get access with their GP. With their standard GP to access the product. I think that is just one statement which is true. If that is for good reasons or bad reasons, well, here I think we have to provide the data from an industry perspective and help them. Because I think what the number tells us, and I think that is where we Germans should really take a step back and breathe, and all the others. This people have consumed before. So what we're now seeing, the spike in consumption tells us how large the black market was. It doesn't tell us if these were patients, MedRec patients, or rec users.
Right.
It just tells us how much money has been made by dealers. I think that's the one number where we should look at. And then the next step is to assess, okay, in which bucket, which funnel do these consumers, if we put on consumers who are medical users, who are maybe not, like, how do we deal with that? And so that is, I think, anything that the law draft should tell us, or the proposal for the law draft.
Right. So is it now up to the government, let's say, to reconcile the process and figure out where the numbers are falling and where the products are falling and how this process really moves forward? Or is it more so the industry is going to audit itself, present a report, and take part in the conversation? Or is this more so the onus on the government right now to refine this process?
This is really about everybody. So now this draft, this proposal is sent now to the association, and they can make their comments to it. Then it goes to the government to decide if they even want to kickstart the process. Right. And I can tell you, never ever has there been in the history a law draft proposed by a ministry that in the current wording went through. That's just
we will see quite a few amendments before this actually.
And then in Germany, it's like when the government decides, okay, that's the wording we will propose. There's 3 hearings in the one chamber, and there's the public experts, like everybody is invited to this hearing to take place, the associations. So many people will be listened to. There will be the bar of the doctors, of the pharmacists, everybody will have a say in it. And then once they go through these 3 steps, and then there's a second chamber who has a veto right. And only after that, there will be a draft that has been sent to our president, and he will then sign this bill, and then it later becomes a law. So this process usually takes up to 12 months. I mean, obviously, when there's a will, there's a way. We've seen that sometimes there are circumstances that require that there is a speedy process. I don't see this being a speedy process. What we do see is that and this is something the industry has to take seriously. The minister made in May this statement where she said, I don't feel comfortable with the numbers. And from May to now, she proposed a law. So I think what she really tells the industry and every actor here is like, I don't feel good about what I'm seeing. Help me. So
telemedicine's not necessarily going away, but do you feel there's going to be some changes, some modifications as to what's going on right now? Is that fair?
I think that is super fair, because in the coalition agreement, they put in words, like not because of cannabis, but overall, they want to increase telemedicine. Right. So it's the mandate this government gave themselves. So they see the need. I mean, obviously, they have kind of a problem seeing that a lot is done without any interaction with the healthcare professional. And obviously, this government, in my opinion, rightfully so, says, I want a process where I see that there's a patient having an interaction, a meaningful interaction with a healthcare professional. If that really has to be face-to-face in person, I'm not sure that is something that we in the ultimate consequence really want, because we already, and I think it's the same in Canada, people struggle to get appointments because the waiting rooms are already crowded. Of course. I don't think we want to add more people to the waiting rooms. So I think what they want to see, if I was the minister, I want to see that somebody shows me that there's governance in place and that the people play by the book. So if you run a script mill that is just based on a questionnaire, giving the script that they want, well, that is illegal. That's already illegal. We don't need to look for that. Okay.
Franzi, is Germany a lot like Canada, where the country is a very aging population? Because that's what's basically decimating a lot of our healthcare system right now, and waiting times. And again, this is probably something they don't really want to entertain, because it has decimated like our healthcare system with it being an aging country. But is it similar like that in Germany?
Well, I think the Canadian system is quite similar to the German one. Obviously, we have an aging population. And also what I find interesting, what also the minister says here is, I want to see more cannabis been issued and reimbursed by the health insurance, because that is also what she says. I find it odd that we have this increase, but I don't see the same increase from that has been reimbursed because the telehealth platforms usually work on private scripts, so people pay out of pocket. So I think it's also for her kind of a mandate to tell, well, I want to see this also in the statutory health insurance.
Of course, which
So
makes
it's
sense.
not only bad, she just feels it's not right. And I think there, Canada and Germany is very much alike. We don't pay out of pocket. We feel the government should pay for our health costs, right? I mean,
Right.
obviously there's shifting, but we have this, like, unlike in the States, we feel our insurance has to pay. So she finds it odd as well that people are paying out of pocket. This also there's two sides to the medal. Maybe people just say, well, I want it convenient and I can afford it. And it's so important to me that I'm willing to pay out of pocket. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just not common for Germans to pay out of pocket. We have our health insurance, and then this health insurance is going to pay for all medication that's necessary.
With the way that the government formed in Germany post last election, with the SPD having to coalesce with the CDU to get a functioning government in place, is it safe to say that pragmatism will prevail and cooler heads will prevail here, since this recommendation is coming from a minister on the conservative side, and there will need to be proponents to CanG that have their input on the way for this to potentially become law, if it does get that far?
I mean, I think we all hope that this is going to happen. I hope that the government looks at numbers, because we also have a deficit, right? So I think a deficit in the money that we can spend. So I think what they will also have to look at, that these operators, the telehealth platforms, they pay tax and social security. I don't think dealers do. So there's money been made. It's now it's secure, it's safe, it is employment.
Right.
It is employment for people. It's a new industry. So I do hope, and this is also, it's up to the industry. I don't think any decision is taken yet. Not at all. We're in a very pre-stage. It's now up to the actors to show the value they bring to the table for the economy and for the patients. Because what is also in the law is, or in the proposal, that they say they want to make sure that patients, like patients, still get their products in a safe way. That's important. Because we had voices that said, put it back under narcotics law, put it back. This is not there. So, and I think that is also something that we have to really look at. There was discussions that became loud in May saying, let's put it back into the box of narcotics, which make it very hard for doctors to prescribe, because it's kind of a red flag. It means you're doing something that is not good. And that is nowhere close in this law. So I think that is also something positive, that they don't want to roll it back. They want to see that all the laws are being complied with, that there's governance and that there's compliance to it. That's what they want to see. And I think really an explanation how this data comes together. So because there's data on the telehealth platforms, that is data, like why are patients coming there, what is happening, all what's like the process, how this works. This is, the government simply doesn't know how this is working, because these are private companies. So it's on them to explain and to show. And for me, it's also, it will be a good phase for the golden standard to show. Like, if you're the good ones, like the bad ones are going to be killed very soon. Because there's scrutiny now.
It's a more structured approach. Look, if I'm an operator that's running a well-sustained business model, I think you would welcome this news. And not to mention, if you said this could take 12, maybe months or longer before any kind of law is implemented, that's also favoring too, because if we've seen growth the way we've had over the last 12 months and you add on another 12, the numbers are going to only compound, and it's going to be that much more telling when speaking to government officials as to how this is progressing. But it makes sense, because it's for long-term stability regarding the industry. And we've seen growth, but that was the big takeaway when I was in Berlin. Not the big takeaway, but some of the takeaway was we're seeing it grow almost a little too fast. But have you seen any pushback from any of the operators in Germany based off of this news so far?
No, I think they're really getting together, and this is what I really like seeing right now, because what I've seen, that these cannabis companies and also at Mary Jane, there's a little bit of a bubble where we all tell each other, oh, you're great, no, you're great, oh, you're great. I think we need to tell this to the others. I think we all believe that this is an industry that makes sense. I don't think you have to preach to the others. I think what we're seeing here is that the industry has not been able to speak to the politicians in a proper way and to give them comfort. But I mean, this is nothing more than like, throw me a lifeline. help me out in my perspective. And she used a drastic way, which I like, because otherwise you're not moving the needle. So she's really telling them, like, wake up, wake up, and get your stuff together. And this is what we always know in groups, right? When the group gets pressure, then they start to cooperate. And this is what I really want to see, like the good ones to come together and show the good processes they've been implementing in the past, what they're seeing, the data they're collecting, because that's meaningful. Because we shouldn't forget, it's unlicensed medication. So we don't have this market authorization, but these telehealth, like the platforms, they have a treasury of data. So use that, show. It's a mandate to show.
Well said. Are you in Berlin?
Not yet. I'm in Frankfurt.
Oh, you're in Frankfurt. Flew into Frankfurt. Was only there for an hour, but what a beautiful.
Yeah, airport. Everybody says, "Oh, Frankfurt." Yeah, airport.
Yeah, loved Berlin. What an incredible city. But wow, what a response it was at Mary Jane. Huge response, and just a beautiful city. But learned a lot when I was over there, and get a real idea as to not only Germany but the interest level that's growing in multiple countries in Europe. And yes, it's still early stages, but I think everything that's being done is done the right way. Anthony, you and I have always talked about medical first when we were in Washington a couple of months ago, which, you know, is clearly that. But let's face it, a lot of these tough questions are actually important questions in the early days. But why not lead with that and build long, sustainable medical programs in various countries? So the big takeaway here is get your stuff together, get your data together, and with that, I think that would be telling and probably a positive sign for a lot of operators that no, telemedicine isn't going away. It just might be tweaked as to what's currently in place right now, right?
100%. Like, get the stuff together. And I think Germany really has the chance to become a role model. And it's good that they're tweaking the laws because they take it seriously. And I think it's not going away. So if they wanted to go away, they would have put it into the narcotic bucket again, which, I mean, if I was a dealer, like, I would just celebrate that, because that would just mean everybody goes back to the street. And I do feel that this is a compelling argument, because the overall law, and I think it was the same in Canada, we want to dry out the black market.
Yeah.
And I think that is really, we want to ensure that there is consistent quality, that we dry out the black market. And obviously protection of the youth. That's very important. And show that we can achieve that with a law. And then this can really become kind of a blueprint for other countries that are obviously looking at Germany.
Well said. Appreciate the update. And let's keep in touch. Tell Stanton and Will 100%. That we say hi. But this has been great. Thanks, Franzi.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care. Well said. And build the infrastructure up first. Canada, in a lot of ways, didn't really do that, and we learned the hard way. And but now we've learned a lot. Almost 10 years, but
Canada built too much infrastructure first.
Canada, what? Sorry,
said Canada built too much infrastructure first. If anything,
yeah. But I think in a lot of ways, this is the right thing to do, because you know, what are people doing right now as far as telemedicine? It's just getting their prescription, basically deliver them through Uber Eats, and that's not a model that's going to sustain itself long term. And there's probably some important questions and right questions, but a lot of these telemedicine platforms like Nick from Bloomwell, the amount of data and the amount of partnerships or relationships they have with over 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 physicians in the country, they should have a lot of data that backs up their story. But an important time. But we want to get ahead of this for all of our viewers out there, just to kind of set the tone and not jump to conclusions. But she was well said with what she said. And
and I think the biggest takeaway is versus the United States. I mean, Germany and Canada, you would have to have these patients going into doctor's offices that are better served treating other patients with actual relevant issues in real time. I mean, for us, I go get my medical card. I go to a cannabis clinic, and the doctor's there after hours, and I'm in and out. I don't have to go to an actual MD's office to get my prescription. It's a very different process. I don't think they would ever do that here. Which is why telemedicine makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and there's nurse practitioners that are now being able to prescribe medicine in Canada because doctors are overwhelmed. But a lot of the times is now, as you're setting up phone call appointments. And does that look like that in Germany? Maybe, but one thing's for sure, I don't think it's going to be finalized. You're going to have to actually go in person to get your prescription. That those days are over. And we obviously know from what we said, if that were the case, that would just drive people back to the black market. And if they have this kind of data that shows, and pharmacists showing the actual revenue, and they need revenue within the country, then that's going to be a compelling point. But there's going to be tweaks involved. I think that's what's going to happen. But all right. Appreciate everybody for logging on here today. Again, apologies for the challenges that we had halfway through there. But all in all, good show. If you want to see its entirety, make sure to log on. Check out the link from before. And this one, obviously, everybody's seeing now. But just a quick heads up, we're going to have Paulo De Luca. He's actually the CFO, current acting CFO of Organigram. He's coming on Friday. And we all know that Bina is going to be leaving as CEO. I think it's the end of August, if I'm correct. Remember off the top of my head, Anthony?
Yep.
So
there's a succession plan in place.
Yeah. So I'm going to learn a little bit more about that, among other things, on Friday. So make sure you log on for that. And yeah, we should have more information for you. But I think that's pretty much it for today. There was actually some news I saw. I think Omar from High Tide texted me. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. High Tide just did a $30 million convertible from Kronos Group.
I saw that.
So Kronos Group are now leveraging that balance sheet, I'm assuming, as an institutional investor. Just smart.
High Tide intends to use the working capital to fund future acquisitions and organic growth as it seeks to expand its business and grow its domestic store network beyond 300 locations. And yeah, I could definitely see that happening. Raj is the type of guy that I can tell that, yeah, he's achieved a lot of numbers, but if I was a betting man, I think he wants to grow that footprint count a lot more in Canada. But this latest announcement kind of alludes to that. So job well by Raj. If anyone knows retail, it's that man. All right, that's it for today. Appreciate everybody for logging on. Happy Wednesday, and we'll see you back here Friday morning at 11 a.m. Thanks, everyone.
See you, everybody.
So, what'd you think of all that information? Some interesting stuff that we just learned once again here at the TDR Traded Black podcast. Let's keep the conversation going. So leave your comments below. We'd love to get your feedback. As usual, if you have time, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications. And stay connected with us here at the Trade to Black podcast. Thanks for watching, everyone.